computer. There we go. All right. Yay, it is recording. Did you get a little message that says it's recording? Yay. Okay. So the badly lit person here, I'm Carrie Buchanan, and with me is Frank Van Oort, and we are going to focus on him in a few minutes exclusively. I am going to disappear from the picture, but I do have to introduce you to Frank. And to do that, I need to read something that's on my screen. Frank was born in Soest, Holland? Soest. Excuse me. In 1953, same year as me.
You're excused.
Into a long line of artists. Among his forefathers are a master printer, a political cartoonist, and his father, an author and illustrator of children's books. As a boy, he had a fascination for illustrations and prints, which were abundant in his environment. He was especially inspired by a large retrospective exhibition of M.C. Escher's work and amazed at the effect these pictures had on him. As a young man, Frank was encouraged by his family and his high school art teacher to pursue his artistic inclinations. From 1972 to 75, Frank attended now you've got to pronounce it.
Gerrit Rietveld.
Boy, I never could have done that. Academy in Amsterdam, where he earned a teaching degree. Shortly afterwards, Frank met his future wife, Sylvia, whom he followed to Canada, taking printmaking courses at Concordia in Montreal and depicting new and interesting scenery. Returning to Holland, he took a job teaching art at his old high school, but after 2 years, he decided that teaching was not his calling. And he turned his attention to illustrating, watercolor painting, and etching. After a few years of frequent exhibitions and appearances at art and craft shows around Holland, Frank and his family, meanwhile augmented with daughter Linda and son Marcel, emigrated to Canada in 1985. Happy in his newly adopted country, Frank enjoyed the open spaces, relaxed atmosphere, and ready subject matter. Continuing to establish himself as an artist, Frank spent many years attending craft shows in Ottawa, Kingston, and Toronto, and exhibiting his work in numerous solo and group exhibitions in galleries across Ontario. Far from slowing down, Frank continues to add to his oeuvre of over 300 etchings, remaining as enthusiastic as ever about his art. All right. Now we can focus on Frank and make him the spotlight. Now, are people hearing okay? Can somebody unmute themselves? I now can't see you. It's okay. I saw some thumbs up. Okay, that's good. Focus on Frank. Ta-da.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Now we might want to put the mic over here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is
that going to bother you?
No.
Yeah.
It's good.
Okay. So, Frank, we're going to start when you were in high school. And you first I think that's when you first got interested in art, is it?
Right. Yeah. We had a very fascinating, eccentric art teacher who was just bubbling over with enthusiasm. And he made us try etching little zinc and copper plates, messing around with nitric acid and varnish and etching ground and a little press that he had. And I just fell in love with it right off the bat. I just knew right away, this is for me, the smell of these chemicals and the varnishes and things. And then the idea also that you could make multiples, that you could make, put effort into a drawing on a plate and bite it and ink it and print it a number of times. That was fascinating to me. Also because I kind of was aware of that process already through my just environment. My parents had etchings and my grandparents had lithographs and etchings, and so it wasn't news to me that this medium existed, and I took to it like a fish to water.
All right.
Yeah, made my first etchings around 1967, somewhere there. and I still have some of them. They look horrible. Yeah.
I can't imagine that anything you did looks horrible. Are people hearing Frank okay? Is the volume okay? Good, good. I'm getting some thumbs up.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for joining. It's an honor. Nice that you're out there. I hope it'll be somewhat interesting.
Now, what did you do next? Did you continue etching, or did you go to school and learn to do all kinds of art, or what did you do?
Well, so it seemed that artistic endeavors were my thing. And so I didn't do much math and biology and physics in high school, but I always drew, and it was a Montessori school,
Oh.
if you believe it. And so they let you do these things. They didn't say Frankie never does his math and his geometry, but he does draw all the time. So let's at least, and this is the Montessori attitude, let's appreciate that he does that. So they let me, and so it was stimulated by my teachers, by my parents, and obviously I had to go in that direction. So they sent me to a teacher's college where I learned to draw and paint, and because my parents said, well, you got to have some way of making a living, because as an artist you'll never make a living. Some people still say that, and I don't know.
You managed.
I managed, but it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Anyway, the teaching didn't agree with me either, because I guess I'm too much free thought, whatever. I just want to do my own thing. And so I decided, after 2 years of teaching at my old high school, no less, to make the jump and try to make a living illustrating and watercoloring and etching. I dragged myself around on craft shows all over Holland and in the summers, and somehow scraped together a living. That was encouraging, and so I kept at it and never looked back. I don't know what happened in the meantime, but all of a sudden I'm an old guy, and this is what I've done all my life.
That's pretty amazing. Well, there was Sylvia.
There was Sylvia. Yeah, I met a Canadian girl from Dutch parents, born in BC. She came to visit her relatives in Europe, and we hooked up somehow, and I fell in love with her, and she went back to Canada. I ran after her and did a year in Montreal studying some printmaking, and we came back to Holland together, started a family, lived there a few years, then decided to move to Canada permanently, and almost the same place right away, and it's been good ever since.
I think you lived in the Montebello area.
Montebello for a while, for the first 2 years, because Sylvia's mother lived there. So we had the benefit of, her circle of friends and family around, and that seemed like a safe way to kind of get our feet in Canada. But it worked out pretty good. I started doing craft shows here, the big ones in Ottawa and Toronto, and it worked.
Mhm.
People seemed to like what I did. I do think that maybe part of it was that the etching medium wasn't so well known here, so it was kind of interesting. There weren't a lot of etchers that I met on my way, a few of them, but so that probably helped.
You did some illustrating, you said?
Yeah, I had somebody got me a job illustrating for a economical weekly. It was very boring subject matter, but I tried my best to make it kind of a little humorous, and did that for a few years, and I got paid X amount per illustration, and I did it diligently for a couple of years. It really helped.
Yeah. It's good to
Yeah.
have a regular income like that,
Yeah.
not just waiting to sell pictures, right?
Right, but I had that same feeling about illustrating, that it's too bound to somebody else's story and somebody else's idea. So it was like squeezing juice from a stone or something.
So
I had a hard time, and I'm glad to leave it behind at some point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what inspires you in your work?
Well, it's really nature, but I also love architecture, and I love old cities, especially where I come from. The European cities are a great source of inspiration. Done a lot of work over the years in Italy, and depicting bridges and buildings and stuff, and that is definitely something that turns my crank. But also trees and fields and the big open sky, the lake. Lately, it's been the lake a lot the last couple of years. Christie Lake, that's very close. And I love to go out there in a canoe and sit and paint. I always want to paint or draw outside in nature, not in the studio, but I want to get out there.
Well, and I was struck when I visited your studio, which we can't be in right now because there's no Wi-Fi in there. So we had to be in the house. But he has with him one of the sketchbooks that he has many of
There it is.
in his studio. And you wouldn't believe, like, he can go out in the woods or something, or on the lake, and make something like that in a canoe. He doesn't take a picture of it. He actually does it when he's out there, which is different from some other people that we've talked to in this series. Yeah. So have you ever had your canoe tip over with all your paints?
Well, the thing is, you're sitting in a canoe, and then some guy comes along in a motorboat, and it's like this. And you can't get your brush on the paper, so you have to wait a while, which is wonderful. That the paint can dry a little bit. Once you're just settled down to next to nothing, it's time to pick up the brush again. In this case, it's watercolor that I'm doing, and that's also.
And we're going to look at some of the pictures that he did in this very, what do you call it, sketchbook?
Yeah.
When he was recently in Mexico. So I'm going to share the screen and show you some of that stuff. Is that what we should do first?
Great.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So you'll have to bear with looking at me for a second. And then I'm going to do share. Go to, oh yeah, Google Chrome is on the wrong page. Okay, I can't do, let's just see. No, I have to move this down. Just give me a second. There.
Right.
Assume. Share the screen. This is what we want to see.
Carrie does her wizardry. Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, and I'm gonna make this full screen. Wait a second now, just hang on a minute, you foolish thing. Not you, you're not foolish.
I am foolish.
Why am I not seeing? Oh, I know, I need to make it full screen. I need to get these out of the way just for now. Just bear with me for a second here. See, as soon as you call me a wizard.
No, I think that's good. You got
No.
full screen now.
No, I don't.
No.
Slideshow.
Okay. Awesome. There we go. Okay.
All right. Now, this thing, I need it to go somewhere else. Okay. And no, I don't want that. Okay.
And
So-
how do we move on to the next one?
There's a tiny little
Okay.
arrow here.
Yeah, okay.
Not the big arrow, not the filled in arrow, but this arrow. And
So
you just click
should I
here in
just-
the middle, there, like that. Okay, now if you need to back up, you have to open this up and back up.
Well, let's
So
go
we're
to
gonna
that first one and we'll take
Yeah.
it from there.
Okay.
And then it's just sequential.
let's do it. Okay, all right. Do I need to back up to the?
No, it's all right.
I can go
We
from
both
here?
did. So
I'm
we're
not very
back,
good at backing up.
we're by the side of Laguna de Bacalar in southeastern Yucatan state. And it's a wonderful 60-kilometer long freshwater lake, and we're right by the side of it. So every day we floated around. I try to do a little watercolor or drawing every day. And as you can see, it's just a sketchbook. And so it's a little awkward because in the middle, the pages are meeting and the water doesn't always flow the way I would like to, but it's just a thumbnail really, and just kind of a recording of one day after another enjoying this lake. By the way, the lake is called the Laguna de Siete Colores, or the Laguna of Seven Colors. And sometimes it's green, sometimes it's gray, sometimes it's bright blue, sometimes it's yellow. It's literally changes color from day to day.
No kidding.
And as you can see from the skies, we did have some heavy weather, big clouds coming in, rainstorms all of a sudden. It's a bit of a challenge when you're doing watercolor because all of a sudden a sprinkle of drops just destroys everything.
Oh, no.
I have to quickly cover up or turn the picture upside down.
Because it's not dry yet.
It's not dry yet. Yeah. So anyway, let's
Now
let's
just
see.
click right here.
Okay. Yeah. So and there's nice foliage along the side of the lake. Across, you see some low islands. So yeah, I seem to find something every day to keep me occupied. More of the same.
Beautiful, beautiful. What kind of tree are they?
Well, they are somewhat like cottonwoods, I would say.
Huh,
You know,
yeah.
the riverside kind of trees, and they have bizarre shapes. Often a tree would fall over, but then the roots keep going, and they seem to be ancient and gnarly.
Yeah,
And yeah,
wonderful shapes. Oh, look at that.
yeah. So one of the things of being, this is a really windy day, so I'm painting these two tree species, the lighter and the darker. But the big waves are coming in, and all of a sudden there's this big blotch right across my watercolor, and things start flowing. But in a way, I said, yes, that's what I want. I want like the mess, and try to see if I could fix it into make it behave, so to speak.
Mhm. Well, you managed to rescue that. That's a beautiful painting. It just looks so professional, and you're just doing it in a sketchbook.
Well, yeah, you have to do it somehow. In some cases, I might take these pictures back home to my studio and do them over again in a more controlled environment, so that you have a nice stretched piece of watercolor paper, and it's not like this is just loose pages. So when you throw water on it, everything starts to swell up, and the paint wants to go into that gutter in the middle, and it's a bit of a challenge. I'm not making excuses, but when you're in the studio and everything is more controlled, you could recreate something like this and hopefully catch the essence.
Just right in the middle at the bottom. There. Oh, it's over here. It's not on the arrow. I don't know how I did that. There.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a laguna within a laguna. You see the bright blue is the big laguna. And there's this bit of a side bit where there's actually some alligators living.
The alligators are in here.
Yeah, we saw them a couple of times. Didn't put them in the picture, but.
And then the big blue is at the back there.
Yeah.
They can see that when I point.
All right. Yeah. And that's mangrove trees.
Those are mangroves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another
This.
lakeside thing. I got fascinated with the water and how do you depict it and how do you
Right.
do the reflections? How do you make it look,
Right.
convincing? So I had a lot of fun with that.
And is this the same lake or a different?
Same, all the same lake.
You're right about the 7 colors. It's a different color.
Yeah,
quite frequently.
from day to day and from location to location. Some more mangrove stuff here.
All right.
That's the threatening skies.
But this time the lake is blue and not the greenish. Actually, it's greenish in front.
Yeah.
And blue behind.
Also, there's different depths. Like it gets deep further on where it gets blue.
So it'll be a different color when it's deep.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. Oh, and now it's a mixture of green and blue. Amazing. Anything more to say about that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe if somebody wants to hear something about it, then I can try. And of course, there's sailing happening on that lake. There's sailboats, pleasure boats. So I had to put a few of those in.
Right. And there's a hut over here. What
Yeah,
is
they call that a palapa in Mexico. It's made of palm leaves. It's just a shade place, And then you can see palm trees and mangroves on the side.
There's a dock there.
Right.
Is that a dock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A really long dock.
Really long. Does that go like from
Well,
to an island or something?
Well, to kind of a dock that you could walk parallel to the shore. One of these places where you can go for a nice swim.
So you didn't worry about the alligators?
They stick to the little shallow places where the mangrove trees are.
Okay.
They're not.
They don't come out there.
No. Nobody seems to be worried about the alligators. Oh, that's a little in the town of Bacalar, cute little thing that was a coffee shop that I couldn't resist doing a drawing of. And I got a free coffee out of it.
Oh, that's great.
Because the guy liked it.
Did you have to give it to him or give him a copy?
No, I gave him a copy. I made a photocopy in town and dropped it off. I was happy.
Okay.
So the same subject matter, but now in pen and ink, which is one of my main things. I always like to carry pen and ink because it travels easily and it's always there.
And you don't have to worry about the paint running or
well,
something.
you still have to do water is bad, so rain is bad because that makes the ink is not waterproof, so a little sprinkle of water is going to destroy it, but that's one of the challenges.
You enjoy a challenge, do you?
Well, yeah, put up a fight once in a while to keep my my drawing dry, and especially when you're right by the water. My biggest fear was to lose the whole sketchbook.
Right.
It would be instantly destroyed. That didn't happen, so.
Yeah. Now, where's this?
Alongside the same lake again, there's docks coming out from everywhere, where there's also private hotels and things that have their own private dock. So you can see there's a lot of docks pointing out into the lake.
And then there's buildings back there, those thatched roofs, or is that what you call it?
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of docks. Okay. All right.
Anyway, I'm always eager for something to draw. It doesn't matter much what it is, but it's a daily routine, and it keeps me engaged all the time. And when the right thing comes along, I'm ready. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like practicing music. You just want to make sure that you got what it takes when something happens on your path, and you want to be able to record it.
Now, you had something you said to me about somebody asked you, how long does it take to do a picture?
Yeah, well, that comes up when you're sitting somewhere. I look for a little quiet spot where I'm not bothering anybody. But inevitably somebody comes along and looks and says, geez, what's that? And how long does that take you? And then I always kind of say, well, 45 minutes, but also a lifetime. Because you're not born with the ability to put something down just from looking at it, So that's experience, I guess.
You have to play around with things and try them out.
And find out what works and what doesn't work. I still haven't found it out really, but I'm still trying as hard as I can. This is an old fort that was built in 2 centuries ago to sort of protect the town of Bacalar from supposedly pirates. I guess
Oh,
people were on the prowl to steal lumber from the interior of Yucatan. Very valuable, very much wanted in Europe. And so they built a fort with cannons and whatnot to fend off these supposed pirates. I don't know, it sounds a little iffy to me. But there's a real fort and it's 200 or 300 years old. And
oh.
there you go.
So you went and toured that. That wasn't on the lake that you were.
It's right on the lake too.
It is.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, look at that sky.
Yeah, there's some rain happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to capture that.
It's hard to capture it when it is raining, I imagine.
Pretty nasty. I tried the rain over there a little bit. See. Anyway, just me having fun.
Oh, it said we got a little message saying your internet connection is unstable. So this picture may take a minute to load. Okay. Yeah, we're out in the country here. Yeah. What exactly are you in DeWitt's Corners or you're outside of DeWitt's Corners?
DeWitt Corners is kind of the closest. Yeah.
Yeah, the closest town.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I drove over here tonight very courageously in the snow. Okay, let's try.
It's snowing, so who
Yeah.
knows? Look at that. We got something.
We're back. You lost us for a few minutes, but we're back. We had this twirling thing. Were you able to hear us talking the whole time, or did you hear anything? No, we were just gone. Yeah. No, there's some more slides in the that you prepared. That we
couple more. Yeah, if we can find them. But
let's see if we can go back.
If it's a problem, then
does anybody have questions at this point? You have to unmute yourself if you have a question and maybe wave your hand to let me know if you want to ask the question right now. But otherwise, we can just continue on with the slides. Is that what you'd like? Give me a thumbs up if that's what you, okay. We will keep going with some more slides. Share. Okay, go Chrome. I think that's what we were doing, but I'm not sure. Oh, wait a minute. I know what I have to do. I have to go over there. Okay. It's going to take a minute because it shut down too, the slideshow. So it's just going to take a second. Okay, so we've got to get back into. I was in a different window before. There, that's why.
look at that.
Now I have to knock this a little bit down because we have to go back to the Zoom and share the screen. Okay, share. There. And now I can make this full screen. Just have you on there.
Different one.
And
go back to the.
I'm going to move this.
Okay.
Get into the slideshow again. There. Isn't that nice?
We had a bunch of people having lunch. Was maybe the previous one or the next one? I don't know.
I can go into the previous one. We missed a few. Oh darn. It's got this little pencil thing. It just won't let me do this.
Yeah, forget it then. Oh, there we are.
Is that the one you wanted?
Yeah, good.
Oh,
well, that's good
there
too.
we go. Okay.
There's our bicycles by the tree. It's a marvelous old tree in the middle of town. a guy selling mangoes, and oh, the other picture is about us having lunch someplace. I don't know if we can get that, but
I will. I'm just gonna put you back in the spotlight. Just spotlight pin. I want to pin you. But yeah, and then I can shut this down. So it's just you.
okay.
See? Yeah,
Look at
I'm
that.
being very fussy about this.
Ooh.
Okay, go to the next one.
Sure. Oh, there. Yeah, so we were having lunch, and a whole bunch of two Mexican families were there, and then when they got up to go, they noticed that I was drawing them one by one. They came over and said, "Oh, that's me. Oh, that's Aunt Edna, and that's Jorge, and whatever." It was hilarious, but they got so enthused about it.
They were happy about it.
They were happy about
They
it.
didn't think you were invading their privacy.
No, I was a little nervous about that, because here you are, and you're grabbing something from these people. I know it's different from taking a photo, which some people will take offense.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
allowed to take somebody's photo, but it seems to me that when you're drawing, you're free of that. You're not offensive somehow to people, and I always feel very, very good about that.
Yeah.
Because you sit there, you take the trouble, you sit there for a half hour, whatever it is, and there's more just a friendliness that inspires. So that's a good thing about sitting somewhere drawing or painting, is that people are not offended. And it's very rare that somebody gets mad at me or say, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" So wonderful. I love
Now,
that.
the people in Mexico, were they any different about this kind of thing than the people in Canada?
Yes, it's different. Mexicans are curious, and they wear their heart on their sleeves. I had more interaction with Mexicans than I have elsewhere, because I draw wherever we go, whether
Yeah.
it's in Europe or whatever. Some people are just stiff upper lip. They won't say anything. They won't do anything. But Mexicans get pretty excited about it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
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 Well, that's good. And there's another gnarly tree.
Yeah, one of those fallen over jobs that somehow hung on. And
Amazing. And the roots are all over there. And
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah, scene from the town of Bacalar. See where they have all their motorcycles parked, and there's a couple of little shops across the road, and palm tree and whatnot in front, and just I don't know why I want to draw that, but it's a slice of life.
It is.
And it's different from what we see around here.
Yeah.
I love the different textures, the wooden wall, the kind of metal roofing, and all these things.
And is this brick on the ground?
Yeah, it's tiles on the
Tiles?
ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there we
Cool.
go. And this is some on the way back, in airports, I get to draw people. I call it free models. They don't know that I'm drawing them, but I love it. And you have to be fast and try to capture somebody's pose. And I love to do that. Usually nobody notices, because everybody's too involved in their own thing. We're all waiting for the plane to finally leave and stuff like that. So it's kind of it's heaven for me.
So you've always got something to do.
Yeah, right. Here's a bunch of taxi drivers. It's right behind the picture. There's the taxi waiting. Don't worry about it. Anyway,
yeah,
I love that sort of, but when do you get somebody to pose like that, right? I like that. It's a bit heavy-handed, I know, but that's
So you asked him to do that?
No. They didn't notice. This typical Mexican kind of main square scenes, a couple of tourists and some little kids and the guy selling ice cream and stuff like that.
Mm,
You're lucky enough to see some toucans.
these are
in
the
that.
toucans. Okay. Ah,
Okay,
this is different.
now we're on. That's like a full-fledged watercolor, way bigger than the things you've just seen, and that's on Christie Lake in the
We're
done
back in
from the
Canada.
canoe. Yeah, it's earlier on this late summer,
Nice.
and I love doing that, floating around on lake and trying to capture the day's mood.
Now, is this one that you would have done a sketch of earlier in a boat and then you do the
No,
full,
I just took the whole thing
whole thing
in
out
the
there?
canoe and started going at it. And sometimes it's an utter disaster because it
Yeah,
doesn't know. Not everything works out,
yeah.
but I keep trying. And this one I thought had something. It's kind of bold. I like that.
This is beautiful. Mm, look at that. We got some pretty cool trees here too.
Yeah, the cedar trees are growing right on the edge and they start to fall over, and yet they seem to hang in for another couple decades.
Well, this one, it looks dead here.
Hmm.
And then, but then there's another part that's not. So, and they're attached.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So, wow. Oh, sorry.
Another one.
Very nice.
These are some of the islands on Christie Lake, and it's a lovely place to hang around and find like a sheltered spot out of the wind where you have some peace and quiet to do some painting.
Mm. Now that's actually framed, is it?
Well, there's a mat around it. Yeah, they're not framed yet, but
Very beautiful. Christie Lake too, or
Christie Lake, yeah,
um,
and another one.
hmm. Oh,
Oh, and then this is this is another part of the daily doodle thing. I call it. I fell in love with goats, so I had
are
some
these all
friends.
goats?
They're all goats, and well, some of them don't look like goats, but I was trying to get the goats into my fingers, and so I've drawn a lot of them, and then later on I'll be working on an etching of a goat. See
Now
there?
you're narrowing it
Yeah,
down.
so now it's not drawing with pen and ink on paper, but it's drawing on a copper plate in this case, and you see sort of a sequence from the start of the picture, and then I start to work on it a little bit. The second one has a bit of pencil in the background where I intend to put some trees later on. It's over here. You can see the trees
Oh,
engraved in
yeah.
there.
You got a lake.
And I'm working on the shape of the goat and trying to get it all right. And
So you took the copper plate and you made a print at each stage.
right,
And we're gonna watch a little video of him actually doing that in just a second when we get through this slideshow.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Oh,
so that's
the final
the
product.
final one, more or less, maybe a bit rough still, but there you go.
Mm,
It's a little bigger than the original, but
mm. So the original is fairly small.
yeah, it's about four inches.
Mm. Oh, now
And
hands.
well, that's another thing. For lack of subject matter, sometimes I find there's always hands. So that's my right hand. I'm left-handed. So I draw my hands constantly and just compulsively, just to try to get it. It's a damn hard thing, as anybody who's tried will agree with. So, but by sheer persistence, I hope to get a little closer to the goal. And so hands, and a lot of them, most of them, frankly, end up in the fireplace, in the stove. And start a fire with them and be rid of those awful ones that didn't
The ones
turn
that
out
didn't
well.
work. But
But
there's
sometimes
there's some really good ones
surprising
there. Yeah.
good one in there, and I'm happy with that. It's a little bit of a close-up of some of them. And you know, there's this infinite variety of positions that fingers can take, and the perspective, they can be looking right at you or away from you, and that's just the kind of stuff I love. There in the corner is a little etching.
Let's see if we can close up this picture for a minute. There.
Yeah, so that's a copper etching engraving of a hand with a pencil.
In the upper right corner.
Yeah, and it's kind of like very similar to some of these here, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to put the picture back because people like to be able to see it. Okay, and we're going to move along. We're getting near the end now.
Oh, some more daily doodles. Some of it is Sylvia. You see there the woman, and yeah.
So that's Sylvia.
There she is,
Reading.
patiently reading
Yes.
while I'm doodling away. And some of these are just kind of ideas for maybe an etching or just whatever. It just have to keep doing it, you know, and ideas can grow out of that. And then the next day I might do the guy in the canoe again and again, change things a little bit and gradually come to a composition that is appealing to me. And then I'll try to do a more serious effort with a copper etching.
Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same dog.
Probably. That you did.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, there we're back to that one. So I think that's
the beginning. Okay, so we stop the share here. And now I wanted to show you a video of Frank using his printing press, and I have to turn it towards me just for a minute. And take a look at this. I'm gonna knock this one down. And where's the other window? There we go. I see. We have to knock this down. And then we have to go to your website.
okay. There we are.
And now we have to share. Zoom, go share screen. And here's the video. And I hope the video is going to show. Sometimes on Zoom, a video will not show.
Okay.
Even if we can see it perfectly well, you and I here on my computer.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed.
But cross your fingers and we'll see if this one works. There we go.
Well,
now
looks promising so far. Yeah,
nice
music. Yes, yeah. I'm using a cardboard squeegee to.
You're putting the chemicals on, or is that the
just ink? Just
That's
ink.
the ink.
Yeah, it's very stiff ink, and the black table is a hot plate.
Oh.
It's warm, so the ink gets a little more manageable.
All right, now we go over to the press.
Yeah.
There it is.
Cool. Thanks, Frank.
Okay, now we'll find out if everybody else actually saw that. Did you actually see it? It played. That's great.
Awesome.
All right, I'm going to make sure that it turns off behind here because it's on YouTube, and you know YouTube will just start up. In the
Oh,
background.
really?
Yeah. It'll start making a noise in the background.
Yeah.
And now, I want you guys to know that, oh, I had Frank's website. Wait a minute. You can go to Frank's website and see a great range of different things that he has done. But I think we're going to take some questions now. And so I'm going to put this in gallery mode, remove pen, so that we can see everybody. Because if you want to ask a question, you just have to put up your hand, but we have to be able to see. Okay. So who would like to ask a question? Helen got there first.
All right.
And Dorothy, you'll be second, okay?
Okay. Okay, wonderful, wonderful, Frank. I've seen your art over the years and exhibits in Perth and so on, but the detail is just stunning, just stunning. But I have a question about when you're out there in the canoe. How many different sizes of brushes do you have?
Ooh, really not that many. Like I've got a big broad one for washes, for skies and stuff, and to wet things, like a 2-inch brush. And then just a round one with a good point that is like a number 10 or something. And then it goes down to maybe 2 or 3 other brushes, and the finest being super fine, because I am a bit of a sucker for detail, and I love to put little tiny bits or delineate certain shapes with a tiny brush, and they have to be good. They have to be sable brushes, and they're terribly expensive. But yeah.
I was particularly impressed in your Mexico paintings of the sailboat, the little, the rigging and even the texture of the sail. And it was way off in the distance, but you had it looked like, a fabric sail and everything.
I try to achieve that with minimum effort. Like put a little water on it and just hold my breath and go and hope that the paint will fill out the sail. If you start belaboring it, it's a mess. So that's something I've learned over the years to be more, be kind of bold and free, but not too fussy. I've been known to be fussy, for sure, but I'm trying hard to get away from it.
But it takes all that experience, all that years and years of doing something that you know how to come about, put in all those little rocks without spending hours on them like I would have to.
Yeah. Usually when you're too intent on getting it just right, you'll never get it right? So, and it just seems that the spontaneous movement and moment and a moment's inspiration is worth gold. And can never be replaced by laborious working of something you hope to achieve. So I don't know what it is, but that's what I see when I look at when Winslow Homer, let's say, or some of the great watercolorists. That's what I learned from looking at them. This boldness. So I'm hoping to get there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dorothy, you can ask your question now.
I'm excited when I look at the art that you've done on the lake and in Mexico. And I was interested in knowing you're using watercolor.
Yeah.
And the watercolors that you're using are so soft and different. I keep trying to make a tree look like a tree, but your trees look like trees with a different shade of color. How do you do that?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of like with every time I try a tree, let's say, I try to forget about, well, it's not just all brown, there's untold different hues in there. And I try to respect that very much. And maybe try a little bit here and a little bit there, and then see what works, and then start concentrating on that. I don't know what it is, but just respect is what I would call it, and just I if I think I already know what color it is, then I'm usually wrong. So I'm careful, but watercolor, as you know, it's such a strange thing because you have to be careful. You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. But if you're, once again, if you're too fussy about it, it'll come to naught. It won't work. So you have to be both kind of fearless and bold, and also respectful of the little white spaces you need to preserve, right?
They were beautiful, absolutely magnificent. Actually, I'm very excited because I'm living in the city now. I used to live out on Patterson Lake and I loved it there, but I'm here. I've got the river close by,
Yeah.
and I know I'm going to take a sketch pad and maybe some watercolor and just
Yeah.
play with it. I hadn't tried that yet. And I'm just so excited to see your work. Thank you.
Well, it's nice to hear that it's a little bit inspiring to you. That's amazing.
Very
Thank you.
inspiring. I really need to do something. I've been doing little flowers in my house and
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
imagining them, but it's not the same as being outside, and that's so
Right.
exciting.
Yeah, there's something about being out there amidst, the sky and everything that surrounds us. That
Yeah.
it really
And
works.
and you don't make the sky just blue. You've made it so many shades. What type of
Mhm.
paints are you using?
What type of paints?
Which ones are you, is it golden or
Well,
what?
it's all watercolor, so and I'm a big Winsor and Newton guy, always have been.
Winsor Newton? Okay.
And it's expensive, but you can't fail. You'll never get a bad one. But there's other really good brands too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, I can't wait till it's a little nicer weather, but maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong in reading. Thank you.
That's the hard thing for us. We have to wait till all this snow goes before we can get out there again.
Yeah. Thank you.
If
You're
you
welcome.
want to examine Frank's pictures in more detail, I think you just have to go to his website. There's quite an array of them on his website. And because his name is really distinctive and different, you just have to plug in his name in Google. And
Oh,
his,
I know. Well, I used to see your work in Perth, but
oh, yeah.
those
of course.
days I wasn't really into art in the way I am thinking now. So
All
it's
right. Hey, get out there and be
Yeah.
bold.
Yeah.
I will be.
Good.
I have to do something different now.
All right,
Thanks.
all right.
It's so great.
That was
Nice
fun.
question.
Yeah. We had some good questions. Now, anyone else have a question? Oh,
One more.
Helen has another question.
I do, following up on Dorothy's, your
yeah.
paint box. I think I saw one glimpse of your paint box, which had, I don't know, 36 little spots for your paint.
Yeah, 24, and I put a few more in there, maybe 30. It's a Winsor and Newton paint box, got a little ring, so if nothing else, you can hold it like a palette and work on it when you're in a rough circumstance. But I also like the tubes, really. I use both.
Do you use fresh? Do you put fresh? Or is that your paint box where you put paint from your tubes, but you like to have it wet as well?
Well, a little bit, but mostly they're these half pans, these hard dried bits, cakes, if you will, of watercolor, and they just with water they start oozing the pigment. Yeah.
Yes. Lots and lots of different colors. You don't have to mix a lot. You find the right color and do.
Right, but then it turns out that really, if the palette is limited to as little colors as possible, it works better for me. A big mistake I always make is too many colors. And then they start clashing, right? So I try to keep it sort of subdued a little bit, and then if need be, add a little bit more, but not too many.
That's what I noticed. The colors are so muted and beautiful, and they
Hmm.
blend
Hmm.
so nicely. It's nice. Yeah, I can't wait to try.
Good.
She's gonna rush out there in the middle of the night, start.
I will. I'll be out there tomorrow.
All right.
Now, the person who shows up as iPad, you have unmuted, and I gather you have a question.
I do. My camera's not working. But I had stumbled across originally your artwork, and you have a book at the Perth Library. And I didn't know that you were a local. I just stumbled across it and thought it was absolutely beautiful, and brought it home to pour over your pen and ink techniques because they're absolutely wonderful. But one of the things that I really appreciate, you're having a hard time hearing me, eh?
No,
No, we hear
you.
Is your use of like really good detail, but also your use of space and leaving these like big open spaces.
Right. I'm so glad you saw that, because people often say, oh, the detail. But if you filled a sheet of paper with detail, you'd have nothing. You need a composition, and you need kind of balance, and you need to balance detail with emptiness. And that's what makes it effective, right?
Yeah, it is really effective.
Yeah, so I really strive to do that and try to remind myself, wait a minute, Frank, don't do that. Don't put glass there too, just leave it, and I have to be very disciplined about it with myself, because like I said, I'm a bit of a sucker for detail, and I often destroy something by putting in too much. So thanks for that comment. It's what I'm striving for.
It's working, and that's one of the things that I love detail too, and that's one of the things I struggle with in my art is I can go, with the test brush and the tiniest fine liner into like the tiniest corners, and then it's just this big cacophony of
Yeah.
So I really appreciate what you said, and I love your technique. It's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Rena has a question.
I do, and I'm not familiar with technique or anything, but I am on your website, and I went to barns and farmyards, and the one featured at the beginning is color of cows in a field with a barn in the back, and it's in color. But if you go down further, they're all black and white. Is that, and the same one is in grayscale or black and white. The same one is featured below. So what came first? Are those
yes,
are they?
Certainly the black and white one became first, but But as you know, I also love watercolor, and sometimes I love to be able to just swish paint around. And so I'm tempted sometimes to color in the etchings. And in that case, I have colored it with airbrush, with acrylic paint, airbrush, and I made stencils, and then I could give the cow some color, and the barn some color, and the sky maybe. So that's how that came about. Really an experiment to enhance the stark black and white with a bit of color. I don't know if it's very successful or if it's, I should have done it, but whatever, Sometimes,
yeah, it is very successful.
all right.
For me. Yeah.
Okay.
I really like it.
I'm glad.
Would
I like both of them, but
would people like it if I went to the website, or do you think you'll manage to find it on your own?
Sure.
It's very easy to find.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. So we don't need to share screen again and do that. I think you guys want to ask questions, and then it's actually 8 o'clock. So we're finishing up pretty soon. Do we have other questions? Oh, Margaret has a question. You need to unmute, Margaret.
She's muted.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it just
She's
takes
a
me a
computer
minute to get
wizard,
the
but
microphone
muting
there.
is not her
Yeah.
forte.
Yeah, I'm just do you do a sketch that you're going to make an etching from and then you have to sketch it all backwards? Or do you
Absolutely. Yes, that's
you
yeah,
do?
the etching is very tedious in that respect and very non-spontaneous. You have to have a plan, a really good plan, because if you don't, it's going to be a mess. And with etching, you can't halfway through say, "Oh, I'm going to put a tree here." No, the tree has to be planned from day one. And so everything has to be planned. But then my starting point would be a sketch that is hopefully very spontaneous, that I've done out in the field and I'm happy with it. I'm going to try to now turn it into an etching, but it has its spontaneity, hopefully embedded in the sketch. And I'm trying to be true to that spontaneity with my efforts to turn it into an etching. But it has to be totally planned, which is kind of counterintuitive, but
When you make the etching, do you have to do a mirror image?
yes, yeah. See, because you draw it on a plate and then you make a print of the plate, and when the print comes off, it's automatically the mirror image of the
Right.
plate. Now, in most cases, that's not super important, but we tend to read compositions and paintings and drawings from left to right like we read. So it does make sense to, if you have a nice sketch, I turn it over on a light box and sketch the outlines.
Yeah.
And then that's the way I'm going to put it on the copper plate,
Right.
so that when it's printed, it is true to the original sketch. But you do have to flip it over. And as soon as there's something like letters or like Perth Courier or something on the building, you have to meticulously do that backwards or it's going to be a mess. But you know what? That's sort of second nature for any etcher. You always do that. It's
You learned how to do
no
that
big deal.
from the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, there's mirrors, there's whatever. You just turn it over and trace it. And,
With a light box
Yeah.
underneath.
yeah.
Very cool.
But with etching, there's a lot of drawing and redrawing because you have your sketch. So you have to turn it around and use that as your template, let's say. But then it's going to be put on the prepared etching plate and has to be drawn again on the etching ground with a
that
stylus.
special
And
thing.
yeah, the special thing. So there's a lot of doing it again and again. There's an advantage to that too, that along the way of doing it this way and mirror image and that way, and you make corrections along the way and you make decisions about what should be there and what you should forget about. So the repetition of these actions are also a little bit useful. I'd
Right.
say they're both sort of annoying, but also useful, if that makes any sense to you.
As a writer, I know that you have to go through and take out
Yeah.
half the words.
There, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the
So-
same with images.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Or Margaret, did that answer your question?
Oh, yes, it did. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I thought like an etching would have to start with something first, spontaneous, as you say,
Yeah,
a sketch that you're happy with.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Rena has another question.
Well, I'm just to clarify, the the black and white work you do isn't always etching, right? It can be pen
Well,
and ink or
what you saw in that book is all etching. It's all copper plate.
all.
In some cases zinc, but all etchings. But there maybe in the back there are a few pen and ink drawings, which
A lot of work.
yeah,
That's a lot of work then to do that in etching. Yeah.
right. But then again, it's a technique that really allows for fine lines and finer lines to the point that you almost can't see them anymore, but they are, still will print, you know. The slightest
Mhm.
little scratch will hold a tiny bit of ink. So you can be very subtle with the range of expression of your lines, from very thick, deeply bitten lines that hold a lot of ink to mere scratches that are barely there.
Nice.
Cool. All right.
Well,
So have we answered everybody's questions? I think maybe we have.
thanks for your questions. Those are,
Really good questions.
yes, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's time for us to say thank you to Frank. And how much we have appreciated hearing all about all this and the talent behind and the work behind the art that you do. And how you do it. I think that's really fascinating.
Good. I'm glad that it is, you know, when I'm amazed that it is. What
You
can I
said-
say?
You said you weren't a teacher, but I have seen some teaching going on, right? So that's pretty terrific.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your questions and your attending this.
And I hope the recording worked. And other people who didn't manage to make it tonight who want to see this will be able to do that. We'll be sending out a link later on to everybody who's registered, so you probably will all get it. And I guess this is the end of the series. So I should just say thank you to everybody for your attendance at the series, and for to Mira for allowing us to host this, and to anchor it, and Kat, who is here, Kat Elliott.
Hello,
Thank
Kat.
you so much.
You know
Carrie
Kat?
and Ingrid
I
too.
do.
Kat knows everybody, right? And so
Yes.
anchor it.
Hello.
Yeah.
Wonderful talk, Frank. Thank you so much. Really interesting. Yeah. I'll look at etchings in a whole different way now.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
You're a real artist.
Thanks, Frank.
From
All
Ross.
right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see
Thank
you
you so
next year for our next series.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye.